Well, okie dokie, guys. Welcome to your Donkey Kong Country review. I'll be playing this one on the Super Nintendo Classic. One of my favorite games of all time here. We're going to have a little nostalgia trip, and we're going to critique this game. We're going to talk about, some of its strong points, a lot of its strong points. It's one of the greatest games of all time, as I just mentioned. A bit disappointed that Super Nintendo Classic only includes the first game in the series, which is a bit surprising, considering that the NES Classic had all three Mario games. You would think that this system would have had three Donkey Kong Country games, but I'm under the suspicion lately that we're going to have a Super Nintendo Classic 2. It seems that way, especially with the Switch not getting the Virtual Console. This is probably going to be their way of remedying that. And so here we go with this review of the game. And so let's start off by talking about the graphics. This is definitely one of the best looking games on the Super Nintendo. The only game that would really surpass this is probably the Donkey Kong Country games that came after it. Now, you might not like this art style. These graphics are rendered in 3D, like a pseudo type of 3D, but we had never seen anything like this before up to this point. And this is a later Super Nintendo game. You got to keep that in mind. This is 1994. The Super Nintendo would only really have 2 years left on its life cycle. This system would be completely abandoned pretty much by the end of 1996, probably headed into 1997. There were very few games going to be released from it. They were already developing the N64 at this point. I think a year from now they were going to be releasing the system in Japan. So they were really working on graphics here. Now, this is a Nintendo game, but one of the craziest things about it is it was not developed by Nintendo. It was developed by a foreign developer, Rare, out of the UK. And they're also responsible for games like Conker's Bad Fur Day, Banjo Kazooie. This was part of the Rare Renaissance. Around this time, this is the first game that Rare made that would lead up to a slew of amazing games by them. And we would see amazing games from them. Perfect Dark, GoldenEye, which probably to me is, besides the Donkey Kong Country series, is probably their greatest achievement. And Banjo Kazooie. There's so many to name. Just, you'll buy the Rare Replay, you'll be getting a good portion of those great games. Killer Instinct Gold, I mean, they're an amazing company. And they're known for their great graphics, their great 3D graphics. If you look back at their old games, not that those were bad games, but it wasn't until the 90s until Rare really started to hit on gold. And it was a continuous slew of amazing games after that. After Donkey Kong Country was released, there really wasn't any bad games from Rare. We would see disappointments later on at the turn of the millennium, but I'd say from this game all the way up until the early 2000s, they were really on fire, Rare. And these graphics look amazing. You could see the effects on some of these levels, like the snow levels and the water levels, just the way how the screen and the backgrounds interact. We had never seen anything like this up to this point. There were no games really. Probably the only other game that really took advantage of any sort of thing up to this point, maybe that you could even remotely compare, would be Super Metroid, really. I would say that's maybe the only game that this could really rival, and probably Yoshi's Island Super Mario World 2, where that game would do some amazing things with the FX chip. And this game, I don't believe contained that particular chip, but there was some amazing things going on. I mean, just look at it. This is one of the most dazzling games. I will admit, though, when I popped this game in again, it's sort of weird. I had played this game probably last, I'd say maybe like 2005, 2006 was probably the last go-around I had with this game. I'd say it was a little bit fuzzy, though. It did look a little bit pixelated. And I think that's maybe because I was so many years removed from this game, about a decade or more so removed, and but then my eyes kind of really adjusted to this game, and I have to say, I think you guys know from my history on this channel, I'm not really a graphics whore, and I really appreciate the art style, the you know, especially the more hand-drawn games at the time. When, you know, these games were really made with love, when it wasn't so much just about being all rendered on a computer. When they used to storyboard the content in games, it just had a more intimate feel to it. And this is one of those games, but you could definitely see the transition of this game into 3D. This is the borderline game. I think we could credit this game for a lot of what we would see later on. And the PlayStation had already been, it was just about to be released in Japan at this point. At the same year, 1994, PlayStation would come out in the US in 1995. So we were about to see a lot more of this. This game was just not polygoned out of its mind, though, at this point. Like I said, a bit fuzzy, a bit pixelated, but it wasn't Polygon City yet. But amazing looking game considering the hardware that it was on at the time. The controls are so spot on in this game. You never feel like the controls are screwing you over. Now, I blame the controls due to this game's difficulty in certain levels, especially if you haven't played certain levels for a certain time. You're going to blame the controls, but really, no, the controls are very good. They're not stiff, they're not too loose, they're just right, they're great. And there was a rumor going around for a while, and I remember hearing it on Tech TV, you know, G4, if you remember that channel back in the day. You know, not really back in the day. It wasn't, I guess, really that channel ended maybe, you know, just a little less than a decade ago. It's truly amazing. But, you know, during the times when they would do documentaries, I remember that they claimed to have heard Shigeru Miyamoto say in an interview, the Nintendo president, is he at the time? You know, he said that he did not like this game. He said that it was all flash and no substance, with, you know, not really being too crazy about the gameplay. And I think that was later found out to be untrue. I don't know, that's just like one of those great video game myths that you'll probably hear in various videos with people repeating that. But there was definitely a certain focus on graphics at the time, but I don't think that they sacrificed the controls or gameplay. I think that this game pretty much found a nice even ground of, you know, spending a lot of time on the graphics, making this game stand out amongst the rest, but without sacrificing the quality of the play control, or you know, or just the way how this game handles, because I think it's great. I mean, the swimming sections, there's no button lag. Even playing this on the Super Nintendo Classic, I mean, it's spot on. You hit the button, it's gonna react. You want to roll, you're gonna roll. You want to jump, you're gonna jump. You know, it's just it works, and it's great. You know, I mean, I wouldn't say the controls are as spot on as, say, Super Mario World, but I mean, they're not too far behind. There's really no complaints in this department. Let's talk about the gameplay and the, you know, we talked about the controls, but let's talk about the design, the level design of the game, and just how the whole game flows and everything all together. This game has quite a few levels to it. There's about 5 or 6 sections. And each section has a theme. The first section is the, you know, jungle levels, and, you know, we do have our water levels. They do split it up even within sections, and you'll sometimes see levels that look like other levels, but they have variants to them. Like, you'll see the underwater levels definitely have a different look. But when you get to the one of the final sections of the game, which is the Creme Croc Industries, I believe it's called, you'll see that there is a poison pond level that is very much like the like the section in the first game's water level, and there's just different challenges. And I'll say the levels definitely progressively get harder, but there are times when the difficulty is a bit uneven. You'll notice that certain levels are shorter than others, and they feel easier. For me, the snow levels are a real bitch in this game. There are certain times in the snow sections, when I would be cursing at the screen replaying this game, because my God, especially the parts with the barrels. You're going to try that part again and again. You're going to be shooting out the barrels, and bees are going, these zingers in the game, which are a hard enemy, the enemy that you could only take out with a barrel, which is another part of this game, barrels, which you'll also use to find secret areas in the game by breaking the barrel up against the wall, or various other sections in the game. Sometimes the barrels will just be hidden. They'll be up in the air. They might be beneath the platform. You're gonna have to find a way how to get to them. And these are also called bonus rooms, secret rooms. They're also ways of scoring extra lives. And you'll also be able to access them too with your animal friends. You have a ostrich named Espresso. You've got a frog, which the name escapes me at the moment. There's Rhiney, the rhinoceros. There's Squawks, who all he does was hold a light. He'd have a much bigger role in the second and third game. And Unguard, the swordfish. And you could use them to access these secret areas as well. And you're going to want to do that if you want to 100% the game. And I believe actually the maximum score you could achieve in this game is 101%. And that's where a lot of the time of the game is going to come from. You're going to definitely extend your playtime trying to find these secret rooms. But if you just want to play the game outright, you'll find that there's a couple of hours of gameplay here. But you're definitely going to want to stock up on extra lives, because some of these levels are going to give you a problem. Especially if you're like me and you haven't played the game for a while, you're going to die a lot in certain sections. There's certain parts of certain levels that are just a real bitch to get past. But it's all fun, because it's a challenge, and it never feels like the game is unfair or, you die unjustly. It's just because, you're just not good enough yet for that part of the game. You got to practice, and practice makes perfect. And you're going to notice that you're going to need a lot of practice in this game for certain parts, and you're going to have to time certain jumps in this game, especially during levels like Oil Drum Alley, where the oil drums emit fire from the tops of them, and you're going to have to time your jumps just right, or you're going to jump into the fire. Now, in this game, you could take 2 hits. If you've got Donkey and Diddy with you, the 2 characters of the game, you're going to be able to take a hit. Now, you'll be by yourself if you take a hit. Diddy or Donkey, whoever you have selected, you have to press the select button, and you can choose which partner. Donkey Kong is definitely slower. He doesn't have as much of a vertical leap as Diddy, but he definitely can take out some of the bigger enemies in the game. And certain enemies he will only be able to take out, such as the blue crusher Kremlings, which will be your enemy in the game. And Diddy can do a cartwheel. He could take out some of the bigger enemies doing that, but he's also quicker, he's more nimble, and he could jump higher. But if you take 2 hits, that's pretty much it. And you can also die as a result of falling down a bottomless pit, which you will find in the snow levels. If you do not shoot the barrel in the right direction, you're going to end up at the bottom of one of them. But anyway, speaking of the enemies, we'll talk about the bosses in this game. Every section of the game has a boss, and you'll start off with Naughty, which is a big beaver. And that's basically all the bosses in this game are just basically supersized versions of enemies you will find in the normal levels. And you'll find, just different color variants with different patterns. Because you'll find Naughty the Beaver is the first section of the game, but then you'll see a couple of sections from where he first appears. You'll find another one with slightly different coloring and a different jump pattern, and he's definitely more difficult. Also, you'll see Neki the Vulture, with a very disturbing name, by the way. Neki's Nuts. I don't know who got away with the name of that particular boss level, but I found that to be... It wasn't until I played the game for this playthrough that I actually noticed the name of that level. And I found, they must have done that on purpose. I mean, maybe they were going for an alliteration there, but Definitely trying to put something there into what is basically a kid's game. So, you know, I found that to be pretty funny that they managed to sneak that one in there past the Nintendo censors without really questioning it at the time. But, you know, that's back, you know, before people were so picky about things, you know, in video games. So there was a lot of things that probably got past the censors at the time. They really just didn't care. But yeah, Neki will return. The only time we ever see a different enemy is really with the Dumb Drum, which is basically just a big drum that tries to crush you. And when it's not trying to crush you, it's actually dispensing enemies out of its contents. And so you'll see that you'll have clumps and crushers coming out of it, and it's kind of funny. You won't actually be able to beat this boss unless you have Donkey Kong in tow, because Diddy can't beat the Crusher. And of course, besides Dumb Drum, you will see King K. Rool, the main enemy of this game. And this is a very unique boss battle. He has many different patterns to him, but you know, let's talk about the memories that this game has for me, because that it will lead into this. So one of the best memories I have of this game is being tricked by King K. Rool. You're going to see that halfway through the battle, towards the end of it, for the third phase of King K. Rool, he's going to drop. You're going to jump on his head for each phase 3 times, and he's going to hit the deck, literally, because you're fighting on a pirate ship. And he's going to drop down, and then the credits, quote-unquote credits, are going to start to roll. But you're going to see the names of it. You know, you're going to see characters by Crusher and all that. You're going to see that's all the names of the Kremlings, the bad guys in the game. And then you're going to see the end with a question mark. And then King K. Rool jumps up. And the first time that happened to me was when I was a kid and I was renting this game for the very first time. And I didn't really think anything of it because I was a kid, and basically King K. Rool just steamrolled me, jumped right on top of me, and killed me. And you know, it was great to relive those memories right there. That is a very unique false ending to the game that I don't think they've really done up until that point. That is definitely a nice little psychological touch they put for that final boss battle, and it's definitely a very fulfilling final boss battle. I think it feels a little bit more epic than even the final boss battle in Super Mario World with Bowser, to be quite honest. And other memories, the snow levels, as much as they are a bitch to play through, they are really fun, and the snow effects are just, man, they're just dazzling. And can we talk about the soundtrack of this game? From, you know, the minecart levels, the minecarts. Oh, man, the minecart levels. They're so much fun, and they're so iconic. You'd see minecarts, I don't believe they're in Donkey Kong Country 3. Not a minecart, anyway. They would have different variants on that, but they would return in Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Conquest, the sequel to this game. And we would also see the minecarts return in Donkey Kong Country 64, which some fans are a bit split on, but I think most people like that game. But yeah, the minecart level is amazing, and you know, very tense music that plays. But probably the best piece, you know, of course the first level. You know, you've got that famous, you know, main theme going for it. And then you got Aquatic Ambiance, which I think many people believe to be one of the greatest pieces of video game music of all time. It's just such a relaxing piece. It's such a great piece of video game music. It's great just to listen to. It's relaxing. It's something that you could probably put on to lull you to sleep. Another one of my favorite levels in this game is the stop and go level, where basically I think it's called Stop and Go Madness or something like that. But anyway, you'll be going through this mine, and there are these Kremlings that you just can't beat. Nothing works on them. No barrels. You can't jump on them, and they're going to be running back and forth. But when you turn on the lights in this mine, you jump on a corresponding barrel that says on and off. You switch the lights on, and they just crumble to the floor, and they kind of end up like, sort of like a meatball, almost like in the Ninja Turtles episode, Attack of the Killer Pizzas. They roll up into a ball, but there's a timer. Once the lights go off, they'll get up again, start running around like a bunch of maniacs. And you listen to the music. The music is very creepy. It's very eerie, and I love the atmosphere of this level. It's definitely one of the best levels in the game. There are also other levels where the lights will just go completely off with the same type of light gimmick. The factory levels. Again, other levels that have great music to them. Every stage in this game has great music. King K. Rool's music is amazing as well. The music always fits what you're looking at. Never feels out of place. Everything handled with care. I mean, it really is. The game is beautiful. You know, I'm not pulling any punches here. The game is just flat out dazzling to look at. Like I said, by today's standards, it looks a little bit pixelated. I thought maybe it was just the emulation of the Super Nintendo Classic, but no, I kind of just, you know, wasn't used to looking at those graphics for a while, and I've forgotten how the game looked and some of its graphical shortcomings. But you take a look at these backgrounds and these levels, and especially the snow levels and the underwater levels, and they're just amazing to look at, especially if you've never seen the game in action before, which is just a crime against gaming if you haven't. And just such a great soundtrack. Overall, an amazing game. A game for me that could be played and played again for ages. It's just a real shame the Super Nintendo Classic doesn't include the sequels. But yeah, if you have not played this game, like I said, you're doing yourself a giant disservice. This is an amazing game. It is a Nintendo classic. It is a rare classic. It is a video game classic. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching the review. I hope you enjoyed. Many more video game reviews to come. If you've enjoyed this, subscribe. You know, if there's any other games that you'd like to see me review, let me know in the comments below. Anyway, guys, until next time.